Are you ready for this, Jacob?
I've been filming these, so first time being behind the mic for once.
Really don't mind if you sit this one out. My words but a whisper, your deafness a shout. I may make you feel, but I can't make you think. Your sperm's in the gutter, your love's in the sink. So you ride yourselves over the fields, you make all your animal deals, and your wise men don't know how it feels to be thick as a brick, Jacob. And the sandcastle virtues are all swept away. In the tidal destruction, the moral melee. The elastic retreat rings, the close of play, as the last waves uncovers the newfangled ways. But your new shoes are worn at the heels, and your suntan rapidly peels, and your wise men don't know how it feels to be thick as a brick. This is the opening verse of the epic poem written by our subject matter, Gerald Bostock. Hello and welcome back to the library. And before we get lost amongst the stacks of books, I want to introduce my guest, a new guest this time, Gerald Bostock, or literally the king of all beavers, my older brother, Jakub. How are you doing?
I'm a king of beavers, not even a king of bears.
No, just beavers.
Okay.
I asked Jacek. I texted him.
Okay.
Look, Jacek's the white rhino. It was a choice that he wanted to have. And I texted him, and I'm like, hey, Jacek, what do you get the choice. What does Jakub have as a nickname? And he called me Cruel Bobber or Bobra Kurva.
Bolba.
So yeah, we'll send you the memes later, Jakub.
No, I know those memes. I know. I'm more than aware.
Well, you can also blame me on this one. It's totally my choice, but also Jacek. So, yeah, Jakub, before we get lost in this epic fucking story that we have over here, do you know anything about Gerald Bostock at all? Do you know anything about Northern English literature, anything of that sort?
Not at all. This is the first time I've ever heard this name.
No, so this is a special podcast episode where we discussed an author that has a robust catalog often, right? But whatever it is regarding poetry, fiction, nonfiction, or journalism, you name it, right? We choose a book sometimes once in a while and discuss the historical context of it and why it was written, why like those tenets and core plots. But sometimes, right, Jakub, where literature is not the sole purpose of the protagonist's life, but it honestly factors into life in an impactful way that it can be argued it is one of the most influential things to happen to them. Today's episode falls under that subgenre we do in this one. Mm-hmm. So, little Monty, and his townfolk, don't worry, we'll get to the reason why his name is Little Monty, would be picked up by one of the greatest British rock bands ever, arguably in one of the most listened to regions ever, to an epic 40-minute song. But before we get into it, do you have anything that you want to think about Little Monty, anything of that sort?
Will we become full Monty?
Oh, again, we'll get into the
okay,
Monty.
so I'm going to spoiler territory. All right.
Yeah. Little Monty was born in a town of St. Cleeve, which is in Lancashire. Sorry, I know English is my first language, but I'm going to butcher a bunch of these English names. Lancashire, which is in the northwestern region of the county of England, which is an island of Great Britain, which is in the nation of United Kingdom, which is purportedly tied geographically to the continent of Europe, but there are those within the Palace of Westminster who would tell you otherwise. This is somewhat of the heart of Lancashire, a pastoral, mostly plains region with a few hills smattered across the landscape. St. Cleeve would be fixed near places like Whitechapel, no, not that one, in the traditional sense, and Stump Cross, and then Forest of Bowland. From my research, forest is used in a traditional sense, and the land is used for hunting by royals, and not the present tense, which is an area that describes trees, because there's no trees in the Forest of Bowland, Jakub. Literally none. So you should change that name.
That's a misnomer.
Yep. Gerald's mother was Mrs. Daphne Bostock, nee Butterworth. No relation to Mrs. Butterworth, which I don't think was a real last name until I started doing my research. Butterworth is actually a real last name.
Very British last name, for
sure. Her family is from the region of where the Butterworths are from, which is Rockdale or Rochdale. Again, English is my first language. Daphne had a peaceful existence before meeting the person who would be her husband, a chap named David Bostock. red flag immediately. There's not much factually known about the paternal Bostock. Actually, there's loads to known about him. We just have nothing that we can verify.
Okay.
That's because David Bostock was a bit of a fabulist. He claimed to be from a village called Butteryhoff. That's a village, which is in the Kilder forest, a place that actually has trees. But those very few listeners familiar with the northernmost regions of the ceremonial county of England will know that basically nobody lives in this region.
Well, you got Butterworth and Butter Off, so it's just, I can't believe it's only butter, but...
Yeah, that's where bread is butter. That's because he was lying. Probably.
It's like it's all cake, it's all butter.
And he might be William Wellesley Twelvetrees from Stockton-Tees. Or he might be Morris Longbottom, originally from Wisbech, moved to Hobart, Australia, and only just arrived back off the boat after making his money off the railroad speculation. Or he could be, one source claims, he could be Gerald, and this is the craziest name. It's pronounced Fanshawe, but it should be pronounced Feathershoff.
How do you spell that?
Feather, stun, Hoff.
How did you... Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yep. He's a direct descendant of George William Featherstonhoff, an English-American geologist and geographer, became the first geographer of the United States, appointed by none other than George Washington himself, and made a fortune off of railroad speculation when constructing the Albany and Schenectady railroads, which you might actually pass on the way home today. If you're listening to this, guys, this is after a long weekend of a bachelor party. This is the Sunday, so we're having fun.
Not only Sunday, Palm Sunday.
I'm sorry. What do you want to say about Palm Sunday?
It's just today. That's
I
it.
know. Religion. I'm sure there's no corruption there. That's literally the line that I wrote. I'm sure there's no corruption there, but it works with the religion statement I just said too, because that's a funny joke. Either way, he came home. He came into town one day wearing his signature jacket, a Montgomery, which is the kind of like jacket you simply expect a posh Brit to wear. I know a few posh Brits, trust me. Now, this may have been a little more nefarious because it has been heard that one of the village folk claimed he wore the jacket because, quote, there was a fair breeze under his legs. He always seemed one button short on the bottom, unquote. So he might have been a flasher. These instances seemed to happen the most when he was drinking, and the dude was constantly drinking. He also told so many people different stories of his name that like people simply started to refer him by his signature jacket and then shortened it to Monty. His son would later be nicknamed Little Monty. Get it? Monty Sr.
It all makes sense now. Sorry.
It's nuts, right? Monty Sr. embraced the new name. Why not? Monty was also a fan of poetry. He'd be singing songs from the era, but also like lyrics that he made up himself, right? His voice was legendary, not just because it was a boisterous, naturally like my voice, and only became more voluminous the more liquid courage poured into himself. Hey, look, again, something I can be familiar with, but also because it was proud and bold and clear. Dude had actual pipes, and good ones apparently. One day, Daphne decided she would go out to the pub with her friends, and the sight of her would change their lives together. He followed her home from a probably brutally obvious and creepy distance. Either way, a week later, he was outside her family home singing one of these song lyrics that he made up. And I know there are more romantic lyrics involved in this song, but like this is the one that was documented, so
bear with me.
This is just one of the things. Again, he's drunk. So you ready for this, Jacob?
I'm ready.
Brace your asshole. So, where the hell was Biggles when you needed him last Saturday? And where were all the sportsmen who always pulled you through? They're all resting down in Cornwall, writing up the memoirs for a paperback edition of the Boy Scout Manual. It makes more sense when you're drunk.
Well, yeah. If you told me this yesterday, I would have been, oh, yeah, this is perfect. This is great poetry.
Oh, it's wonderful. Daphne's father, Benedict Butterworth, threatened his life. After all, she was 18 and he was 29. It worked out. A week later, she ran away with him. They ran away to Manchester, yes, that one, where Monty, Sr., owned a home, apparently. They officially got married 3 months later, and their first and only child, Gerald, would be born 5 months after that.
Jesus.
On May 3rd, 1964. I should note Gerald was not a preemie. Now, dude, I know this is a fucked up thing to say, but preemie is like a literal like term that as somebody who has a kid, they use that a lot in Vermont.
Oh, really?
Like, I'm not fucking around here. Yeah. Yeah, people use the word preemie more than I feel like it's one of those antiquated terms in a long time that I'm going to go, oh, I said that, huh? Now, as previously mentioned, it is not known what David Bostock did for a living before meeting Daphne, but Daphne would be a stay-at-home mother. David was also known to have a great green thumb and do the gardening around the house when he wasn't, again, drinking. Gerald had a relatively benign childhood. Early childhood, let's say. His mother would stay at home mostly, smoke cigarettes, and his dad would drink. Gerald loved soccer. Brett, you named it, so you can't fucking get mad at us. His favorite team was Manchester. You get to pick which one. And then the local club, St. Cleve Club. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. St. Cleve played in this Premier B League division when he was growing up. Right? Again, he's living in Manchester. We're getting to St. Cleve. Overall, he wasn't exceptional and really just kind of like more simple and weird. Boring, northern New England kind of kid. New England, excuse me, English. We're not new, we're old England. However, little Monty, little Milton. It's little Monty. Wow, I wrote little Milton. It's little Monty would experience his earliest traumatic memory when he was around 4 years old.
Okay.
All he remembers was his parents packing up their things and fighting, with the image of his dad's Montgomery patched up over the luggage. He found out later that his dad went to the pub and got into a fight. His mother said it was over a soccer match. Again, you named it. But my reckoning is that you don't pick up your family and move out to the country after a fight in a soccer match. Daphne and David and Gerald.
Was this in the 60s?
Yeah.
So, like, hooliganism was starting to get big. It's around that time. So, yeah, but still, you don't really, unless you literally threatened someone so bad that you had to do that.
Yeah, I mean, look, they would move out to the town where Gerald would become the national sensation.
Okay.
The towns of St. Cleve and the neighboring town of Linwell are quaint, quirky, quintessential English villages. This can be best described through a couple of snippets of the weekly newspaper, the St. Cleve Chronicle and Linwell Advisor, or Advertiser, which is where I got almost all of these quotes from, right? So, quote, Sandcastle man calls it a day. Derek Pitch, 39 of Small Clothes, St. Cleve, plans to give up his favorite hobby next month when he marries Angela DeGroot, 17, of Linton House, Porton Lagrange. Mr. Pith is, of course, the famous St. Castle man who has won many competitions over the years on all over Britain's beaches. Wow, that was neurotic writing. He plans on his final work being giving up the gay bachelor lifestyle on the next exceptional low tide at Bosworth Cove. He will attempt again his small-scale model of Buckingham Palace. Right? Brilliant. Small township.
Exactly.
So this is some of the fun context we have with Gerald Bostock here, right? Either way, this move left a deep mark on Gerald, and it should for any kind of child, right? He would begin to refer himself as Little Monty as a badge of honor, really. Mm-hmm. He also began to sing to himself and write poetry, which is something that his dad loved clearly and rubbed off on him. Years after the incident, where we are going to discuss, the headmaster of Moordale. Sorry,
Mortar.
It should be Moordale. I'm sorry, I said Moordale, but it's Moordale Primary School, where little Milton attended. Mr. Humphrey Martin stated that he was a quite and somewhat odd boy, completely unassuming in some ways, though the headmaster did also say that he was, quote, inclined on occasion to obscure and verbose assertions, which led him to being somewhat unpopular with his schoolmates. He also said that, quote, without doubt, the child had a great future academically and that his progress was unsurpassed in the history of Moordale Primary, unquote. That's why it was a little bit surprising and whimsical that little Milton expressed interest in the literary competition. This is capital words here. The literary competition. All right. Have you heard about the literary competition?
I have not.
Well, quoting the St. Cleeve Chronicle and Linwell Advertiser again, quote, the literary competition, which was from the ages of 7 to 16 years of age, was sponsored by leading national newspapers and received thousands of entries from schools all over Britain, unquote. This competition was the new competition at the time for anything like this, and included basically all students of Moordale Primary because they were kind of encouraged, kind of not, right? One of the situations, you have to do this in order for you to pass your grade. The competition was run by the Society for Literary Advancement and Gestation, or, as they're abbreviated to their complete ignorance, SLAG. Do you know what SLAG is, Jacob?
We were watching the Brothers Grimsby yesterday, yes. Kind of.
SLAG.
How do you miss that?
Yeah. Defined by Merriam-Webster, is a stony waste matter separated from metals during the smelting or refining of ore, or a woman who has many casual sexual encounters. It's fine. Their mission, summarily, is to promote the English language, which, again, you missed SLAG, so maybe you were off on that one. The literary competition received thousands of entries, like I said, from all around the United Kingdom. This being the early 1970s, the entries from Northern Ireland all mysteriously vanished. When little Monty submitted his work, as everybody else in his class were required to do, he had no idea that he would be, honestly, an overnight sensation, Frank Zappa. Fucking Fred Zappa doesn't exist. The judging panel, comprised of the greatest journalistic minds of the BBC, could convince to judge, let's say, a children's poetry contest, were swept away. They knew they were looking at their winner right away, right? But a few questions arose immediately regarding the epic poem that was written, nearly 180 lines to it. Namely, how did an 8-year-old write such a provocative and precocious piece of literature? Did he have any help? Is it plagiarized? So they sent a panel of crack investigators to uncover any secrets. What they found was Dave Bostock in his underwear, half drunk and singing while gardening. They thought they had uncovered the secret. However, David may have constructed many a verse in his life, but he kept them all in his head. He was functionally illiterate.
Oh, my God.
In fact, other than the school books, the Encyclopedia Britannica, which we'll get to, the Bible, and however homework assignments the young boys had in his room, the house was pretty much devoid of any writing. They grew convinced that little Monty may have actually written this verse, because he did, through some sort of osmosis from his father. But even the greatest poets get inspiration somewhere, right?
Yes.
On both David's and Daphne's part, they were pretty stunned to find out that their son wrote anything at all, let alone thick as a brick. The announcement was published in newspapers nationwide. Gerald became a celebrity and a BBC sensation. Though he had not even been interviewed at this point, word started spreading, and he was scheduled to recite his poem in the broadcasting house in central London. It caused a local sensation, too, similar to that of Beatlemania is what I said, but you know what? Beatlemania is probably bigger. Quoting the St. Cleeve Chronicle and Linwood Advisor here, quote, a 14-year-old this week blamed her pregnancy on Gerald Bostock, the 8-year-old poet at the center of the week's major St. Cleeve controversy. The girl, 14, Julia Feely, sorry, this is ridiculous, a junior member of the St. Cleeve District Art and Literary Society and poet in her own right, is known to have been friendly with Gerald for some time and has often written poems with him. The accusation was outrageous, and her family doctor, and there's no question of Gerald Bostock being called up in the medical test, since the girl was obviously lying to protect the real father. Oh, that's gross. Oh. But in her state of anxiety showed no sign of changing his story. Mrs. Daphne Bostock, Gerald's mother, already much upset over the events of the weekend, told the reporter, it's disgusting. She's always been jealous of my Gerald. Unquote. This was before he read his poem on BBC Two, right?
Okay. So that's even worse. It's not even out yet, and you're blaming the kid for essentially getting you pregnant with his words and only his words.
Look, it's his words though; they're powerful words.
Killing her softly with his words.
We're about halfway done with the script, Jacob. Do you have any questions so far?
Oh God. How do you get pregnant from words?
However.
Anyways,
I digress. Things turned even darker after he did recite his work, namely, thick as a brick. Now, there are no surviving recordings left, as the BBC's had a policy back in the day.
Yes, that's right.
That you record over older tapes, right, to save money. However, it's said that his high-pitched voice, this prepubescent boy again, spoke as well as you'd expect to anybody to. Mostly, people in London didn't understand his northern accent.
Oh.
This is where I have to add that the BBC actually chose to broadcast his nickname as Little Milton as opposed to Little Monty. That's because they thought that Little Monty actually sounded too dirty for a kid to be named for whatever reason. It was some sort of reference to lewd act, which it kind of was to his father. And Little Milton, that was more of a reference to John Milton, the English poet, and they wanted to highlight the boy's skill in that way. So you'll see it in the St. Cleeve Chronicle and Linwood Advisor that he's sometimes named Little Milton as well.
Once people heard the poem, things changed. People began protesting the BBC for allowing a young boy to recite such a lewd poem. Quote, many of the viewers' complaints were centered around Little Milton's use of a 4-letter word during the interview, which followed his reading. The producer of young artist Michael Fenwick said later to expect that sort of language from adults on television these days. But to hear it from a child of 8 is particularly depressing. When I was his age, I did not even know what the G blank blank R word meant. Unquote. I tried to find out what the fuck the GRR word is. G blank blank R word is. I have no clue what they're talking about. It's not even in the poem. So
it's not even in the poem.
So
we just assumed it's there.
It could have been a mix-up or a different word due to his accent or an old pejorative lost to time.
We know it's in there.
It's in there.
Maybe.
From what I read about those who protested, they're best described as housewives who had too much time on their hands, who had fun like once in their entire adult lives when they got a little too drunk with their girlfriends, then felt a little guilty for having odd feelings they couldn't explain for people of the same sex or gender, and then never once let loose again in their life.
Of course they blame the woman. Of course. They
like to stick their noses in places where they don't belong. However, the BBC put some pressure on the Slag as a core group of these middle-aged moms who were threatened to sue the BBC under the British obscenity laws. Ah, God.
Oh, yes.
It's the British Obscenity Publication Acts of 1857.
Oh, God. And where like what? It's late 60s, early 70s?
Yeah, it's it's 100.
Over a century at this point.
Yeah. We had obscenity laws in the U.S. of motherfucking A, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're exactly how they sound. There's no cussing, no sex, no violence. Okay, that last one is not American. They're a relic of a past time of the United States of fucking America due to streaming services, thankfully. So under the pressure, well, hopefully, thankfully, we have no fucking clue what the religious right is going to do with obscenity laws soon. But then again, a Canadian wrote it best when she wrote Handmaid's Tale. So under the pressure of lawsuits and the BBC, Slag rescinded Little Monty's The Literary Competition's prize. Here's a quote from... Well, before I get to the quote, do you have any emotions, any feeling about Little Monty, anything of that sort?
Oh, that kid got screwed over completely.
Yeah, it's only going to get worse for his life.
Woo!
Yeah. Quote, judges disqualify Little Milton in last-minute rumpus. The Society for Literary Advancement and Gestation announced their decision late last night to disqualify 8-year-old prize winner Gerald Little Monty Bostock following the hundreds of protests and threats received after reading his epic poem, Thick as a Brick, on BBC television late last Monday. A hastily reconvened panel of judges accepted the decision by 4 leading child psychiatrists that the boy's mind was seriously unbalanced and that his work was a product of, quote, extremely unwholesome attitude towards his life, his God, and his country, unquote. Bostock was recommended for psychiatric treatment following examination without delay. The prize will be now presented to the runner-up, Mary Whiteyard, age 12, for essay on Christian ethics entitled,
Oh, well, of course.
He Died to Save the Little Christian. Then the nasty rumors spread, right? Of course they did.
Of course.
How can this young lad write what he did? What compelled him to write such graphic, obscene language? Inevitably, the rumor was that it was all a hoax, and that this would have been a forgery, that the father had written it and encouraged his son to submit it by his own original work. And to this day, that's the prevailing rumor.
Yeah.
For his part, this is what David Bostock said, quote, Little Monty's disqualification, we are heartbroken at the way the judges changed our mind. And the loss of the prize in money and scholarship means we shall find difficulty in paying the installments on Gerald's Encyclopedia Britannica. I shall have to do Dr. Muntz's Roses next week after all, unquote. Because he's making money being a...
Oh,
a
no,
income.
yeah, exactly. Like, he's getting paid for this shit.
One person who was paying attention was the musician and songwriter Ian Anderson, who was the flautist and frontman of the band called Jethro Tull. Jethro Tull originated from Blackpool, the same county as the Bostocks, and the band was impressed by Gerald's poem. High on their success, Aqualung, they approached the family to use the poem as lyrics for their next album. Thick as a Brick was recorded the same year, comprising one 40-minute plus song in 2 parts, so probably 2 songs differently. I don't know. I'm not Ian Anderson. I'm not going to explain Thick as a Brick. Brilliant. As was a time before digital downloads, right? And we became like, it became a hit. Here's an excerpt from the review from the St. Cleeve Chronicle and Linwell Advisor himself. Quote, one doubts at times the validity of what appears to be an expanding theme throughout the 2 conditional sides of this record. But the result is at worst entertaining and at least aesthetically palatable. Poor, or perhaps naive taste is responsible for some of the ugly changes of time signature and banal instrument passages linking the main sections, but ability in this direction should come with maturity, unquote. Kind of a brutal
takedown.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Gerald's parents took the societal pressure of their son being called a fraud especially hard.
Jeez.
Of course they did. One day, a few years later, his father went to the pub and never came home. Right?
Just went out for a pack of cigarettes.
Exactly. When he was asked about this years later, Gerald, not the father, we don't know what happened to him, he told his friend that his mother said that he drowned in the Irish Sea. Not far from town, of course. However, he did find it odd that his mother didn't wear black or spend the usual mourning period, right?
Yeah.
Nor was there any service to the deceased. His mother would never marry again, mostly because it is believed that obviously his father didn't die, and she couldn't get divorced easily without him not being around.
Yep, it's that time.
Yep. However, unfortunately for her, she didn't seem to have to want for anything, as she lived a cozy life without having to do work. It's speculated that she got access to whatever nefarious funds her late or not late husband had, plus the royalties from the platinum record. It's not platinum. I'm sorry. I wrote platinum. It's a gold record. Back when this mattered financially, right?
Yeah.
Bolstered the family, right? Now, I say that the Daphne lived a cozy existence, right? But that really is disingenuous. She became a recluse in her own house. She hardly left the house after the scrutiny of public pressure.
Yep.
She was known as the mother of little Monty, after all, the perfidious boy poet, and the widow of a husband whose body was never found. A disreputable family, all in all. As you can imagine, little Monty didn't take rejection well as well. Even though Jethro Tull gave Gerald writing credits and royalties, right? Like, they were very good to him. He became a bit of a joke around school and was bullied. He did continue to have odd outbursts at school, of course, but mostly he stayed quiet. As the years progressed, his attention and interest in education and literature also regressed.
Why does this sound like this sounds too parallel to Jake Lloyd, the Anakin Skywalker kid.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I mean, boy fandom, right? Like, that's the thing. Not fandom, but that's why you don't fucking put kids on
a pedestal this early.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
I didn't like that show BoJack Horseman that much because it spun out too hard. But one of the greatest things about BoJack Horseman, have you ever seen this show?
I've seen clips, but not the whole show.
Yeah, it's not the jokes are hilarious. My problem with it is at the end it just spun out so fucking hard.
Oof.
But basically the main character, right, Dave Arnett.
Yeah, Dave Arnett.
Yeah, his character says to the extent the year you become famous is the year that you stay mentally for the rest of your life.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
And that's kind of
that's kind of true.
Kind of true. I mean, he's also from LA. We have no idea what it is to be famous.
Yeah.
Trust me, this podcast of 100 listeners, I am not famous.
You're getting well known with those 100 people. But
yeah, it's 100 more. It's 100.
100 more than none.
That's 100 more than zero.
Yeah. Quick maths.
So, little Monty ended up dropping out of school, Jacob.
Oh, jeez.
He did have access to a pretty piggy bank, right, from the royalties. After all.
Yeah.
So he did have some economic independence. Thick as a Brick was an indisputable success. It reached U.S. of motherfucking A and Australia gold record status and peaked at number 1 in the U.S. of motherfucking A, Australia, and Canada. Though it only hit number 5 in the UK, so they didn't love him that much. Gerald left home one day, deciding to skip school without telling his mother, just like his father. I mean, learned behavior, right?
Exactly.
She had, at this point, been so reclusive she hardly even noticed him. It took 2 weeks before Gerald called his mother.
General Gerald.
Yeah, I combined General and Gerald, yes, and mother. And that's when she realized that he's been gone.
Oof.
Gerald started to be called by Gerry, and he lived in what today would be a crust punk lifestyle in London. Gerald became a fixture of the late 1970s punk scene, specifically at shows like the Slits and the Stranglers. He liked the Clash until they got too famous, and he said they were sellouts, which is unfair. He also first loved and then hated the Sex Pistols, calling them traitors to the punk scene early on, which is totally fair if you know anything about Johnny Rotten.
Sorry about that locking mechanism in this audio.
I hope that's in here. We are at a bachelor party weekend. This is like totally raw data. I love it. He gained something he like hadn't in a long time, though, right? Like when he started be calling Gerald or Gerry, it was called anonymity.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's anonymous. He never disclosed that he was like, in fact, Little Monty of the Thick as a Brick fame.
Yeah.
This did bring him happiness for a short while.
Mm-hmm.
However, he also got into drugs, which led him down like a dark road of addiction and depression. Tale as old as children getting famous too early, right?
Yep.
He stopped bathing until he needed to.
Oh,
again, crust punk lifestyle.
Yeah.
Eating mostly like what the community had to share, which in no small part was from his own funds, right?
Yeah.
This couldn't last forever. And like any punk scene, it burst out, right? He burnt out quickly.
Yeah.
So, Jacob, what would you do if you needed to change? You just turned 18 on the streets of London, living by yourself with no real prospects of the future.
Probably go to the oldest profession in the world.
What's that? Prostitution?
Yes.
Oh, that was way smarter than what I did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's right. He went to the second oldest one.
Oh.
He joined Her Royal Majesty's Royal Navy.
Oh, that's going to go great.
Just in time, too, for on April 2nd, 1982, the Falkland War kicked off with an ambitious amphibious invasion by the Argentine troops to what was known as Operation Rosario.
Well, shit.
This conflict was a 10-week undeclared war between Argentina and the United Kingdom fought over the Falkland Islands, or Malvinas in Spanish. Off the coast, of course, of the tip Argentina. They are both strategically important for sailing around around Cape Horn, but more importantly, it had that sweet, sweet, luscious black gold oil. So Margaret Thatcher, insert booing noises here is what I wrote.
Margaret Thatcher, milk snatcher. We got an audience.
Deployed the Naval Task Force to ensure that the Falkland Islands remained under British sovereignty, being British as ever. You know, that little coast off of Argentina. This was a British overseas territory at the time, and the Argentine military dictatorship felt like it really shouldn't be. It should be theirs.
Well,
now, right?
it's near us.
Now, I'm going to go... we're not going on a Falklands War here, right, Jacob?
No.
Right? Like,
He'll be here all day.
yeah. The Falkland Wars is confusing. It's a massive thing. What we need to know about this is that the United Kingdom undisputably won this conflict, right?
Yeah.
Argentina lost about 650 men to the United Kingdom's 250. These are killed in battle, not casualty numbers. Our Gerald Bostock, a.k.a. Little Monty, a.k.a. Gerry, was one of the dead.
Oh, man.
This has been a tragic tale, right?
Yeah.
You want to stick around for this, trust me. This is crazy.
Not
It's
just
tragic,
you,
right?
Not just you listeners.
Yeah.
There's other people here as well.
This involves sudden fame. It's a healthy serving of music. It's like really, really crazy, right? Now, I have a few questions, Jacob. When is this podcast usually broadcasted?
It's like 2 weeks from now.
Wednesdays, right?
Wednesday, well, I'm thinking like when you edit and all that stuff. Okay, but yeah, Wednesdays.
Yeah. Do you know what the date of this Wednesday is?
April Fool's Day. No, is it April Fool's Day?
April Fool's, Jacob.
You're fucking joking, right? I hate you. I hate you so much.
In the words of the fictitious Vermonter Rodney Rod Favre of the equally fictitious Vermont Highway Patrol, I got you good, you fucker. Now, I didn't make this elaborate April Fool's joke out of whole cloth, Jacob. there's a backstory I need to disclose because this legitimately funny story about the poem called "Thick as a Brick" is the joke.
Yeah.
Right. So. Jethro Tull was riding high off the success of the album Aqualung, right? Legitimately one of the most successful albums in the 70s, one of the most successful albums, period. However, many critics believe that it was a concept album, whereas the writer Ian Anderson considered a collection of songs, right? So to counter the critics' opinions, he wrote a concept album itself, Thick as a Brick, and this is the album. On the vinyl LP, which this is where a shit ton of this comes from. He constructed a fictitious newspaper of, equally fictitious quintessential small English town called St. Cleeve, with the Bostocks being the main story. I'm serious when I say the LP itself probably took many, many years to actually make. Probably just weeks of maniacal writing, as there was several pages of advertisements, soccer scores, again, you chose it, United Kingdom, not us. Stories of UFOs, bad bunnies, and perverts. It was meant to be a joke of a concept album to poke more fun of other different concept albums. However, people missed the joke. People think it was real. And all I hope with this script on your bachelor party, as an April Fool's joke, Jacob, is I honored that joke.
Well, you got me. That's for damn sure. That's what I get for listening to your podcast. And it's just like, yeah, I can't wait to be a guest. Sure enough.
Do you have any plugs, Jacob?
Okay.
I guess watch Mount St. Mary fucking...
Mount St. Mary's, ESPN.
Yeah,
where
ESPN.
I directed most of the games.
Should we keep that in there?
No.
Okay.
No.
Watch ESPN, guys. He broadcasts sports on it. Actually, the only source I used for this is Jethro Tull's physical LP, Thick as a Brick. So Ian Anderson did all of it. All the lyrics and most of the quotes that I had are from that, Jacob.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I know. I took a lot of creative liberties here, though.
Yes, I noticed.
So, yeah. Otherwise, I hope you had a great bachelor party weekend. I don't think it's fair to share anything other like plugging my way through all shit. No. Do you have any questions, Jacob?
Can I not do this again? If I'm going to get pranked next time.
Yeah,
you're just setting it up for early next year.
Look, there aren't many days when I release a podcast that's April Fool's. Let's be real.
Fair enough. But you're just setting up an April Fool's like literally in September. It's like, I'm going to get him again.
That was a 40-minute April Fool's joke, Jacob.
Oh, my God.
You got to tell me. That was pretty good.
Oh. I can't believe people are still doing April Fools.
All right. Love you.
Love you.